In this video, we will explore OpenEye's Apex System Configurator, including its features and benefits. The Apex System Configurator's purpose is to allow users to mix and match cameras and recorders to find the best configuration for their project needs. Let's begin by finding our way to OpenEye.net. Once there, click the Sign in the upper right corner and log in using your My OpenEye credentials. Once logged in, select the System Configurator icon from your menu. You will notice that one recorder and one camera are automatically added to the project when starting. If you want to add more cameras, you can click the Add Camera button, and for additional recorders, the Add Recorder button. For now though, let's focus on cameras. Laying out your camera needs first will make selecting a recorder a lot easier later. You can see there are a number of options to configure your cameras. Let's go through each of them one by one. First off, you can name a camera if you like. This will be useful later in the project when you're juggling several types of cameras or differentiating between them. Let's call this first one Hallway. Next, you can choose your camera model. New cameras default to the OpenEye C6123, but as you can see, there's lots of options to choose from, including the ability to select a third-party option. Changing the camera model will affect available resolutions, bandwidth usage, and storage usage. Full details about each model are available on their respective pages at OpenEye.net. And it helps to have some in mind before using the system configurator. Let's leave this as the 6123 for the purposes of this video. Next, you'll select your recording stream, for which there are three options. Continuous, as it implies, will record 24 hours a day. Motion will record only motion when it is detected by the recorder using video motion detection. Usually the stream is a higher quality since it's going to be for a shorter period of time. Continuous plus motion will record both types to separate streams with independently adjustable settings. OpenEye cameras added to an Apex recorder are set to continuous plus motion by default, so long as they have dual stream enabled on the camera. Continuous plus motion provides a great option to offer most customers. By continuously recording a low resolution, low frame rate stream to show nothing is happening while using minimal storage, then recording a high resolution, high frame rate stream on motion events. You can choose your resolution next. As you can see, there's several pre-filled basic options. Keep in mind that higher resolution does result in better quality video, but requires an increase to bandwidth and storage needs. Next, you'll want to enter the hours per day that you expect the camera will be recording, which defaults to 12. More hours of recording consumes more storage capacity. After that, you'll enter the expected level of activity. Higher levels of activity require an increase to bandwidth and storage capacity. An example of high activity would be a train station or mall atrium. Average might be a stairwell or courtyard, and low might be a fire escape or office hallway. Always keep in mind this is only an estimate. Our actual bandwidth and storage requirements may vary based on your specific scene and what happens in the real world. Next, you need to determine the frames per second that you will be recording at. OpenEye cameras default to 10 frames per second, and that is our recommended setting. As with other quality options, higher FPS requires more bandwidth and storage capacity. Lastly, you need to enter the number of cameras you intend to deploy with these exact settings. Any deviation from these settings will require you to use a new camera line. Also note, on the right-hand side, using the 3 ellipses, you can clone this camera or you can delete this camera row completely. Before you move on to selecting a recorder, let's take a look at the advanced details available when a camera is selected. You'll find this on the lower right pane. In addition to all of the items listed on the left, you can specify the details of the motion and the continuous stream. It's also worth noting that you can manually adjust the camera's bitrate if you want to, just by clicking the lock icon to unlock it, and then enter the desired value. This is especially useful when entering third-party cameras, as we aren't loading specific information about the manufacturer that you may be using. Now let's move on to recorders. Up here, back in our left pane, you can see the Recorder 1 listing, and here you can actually rename this as well. So if you're doing multiple recorders, you can give each a unique name. Let's leave this as Recorder 1 for the time being. With this line selected, on the right-hand pane, you'll want to click the Select Your Recorder Solutions button. Here you'll see a list of your recorder options that will load. Each recorder has a View web page link that will take you to the respective web page for that model so that you can pull up full details, including spec sheets on that particular model. You also see a list of options available at the top here, which can be used to filter out any recorders that don't fit your needs. You'll need to start by selecting a server software option, and to help us determine the right option, you can view a table of their features by clicking on the Compare Software Versions right here. For the purposes of this video, we'll go ahead and leave it selected on Traverse. After this, you can choose whether you want Windows or Linux for your operating system. For this video, let's go ahead and choose Windows. And you see the list change down below just a little bit. Next, you have a few recording options to choose from, including RAID 5, embedded PoE, or removable hard drives. Lastly, you'll want to select your minimum number of recording days. For this video, let's go ahead and use 45 days. The storage capacity required for 45 days of video is calculated based on the cameras you selected earlier in the project, which is why it's easier to do that before selecting a recorder. If you want to see the approximate amount of storage required for your camera setup, on the right-hand pane, you can switch from System to Storage, and you can enter your number of recorded days, and it's going to give you an estimate on the storage required just for those days. This is nice and easy for a quick estimate before you get into selecting your model. You can change either of these fields and the other will adjust accordingly. So in this case, I put 45 into my days recorded, but I could also switch this and say I plan on buying a 8 terabyte, and it will update to reflect 76 days recorded. Let's move back over to the right and make one more selection so we can narrow down our list a bit. Let's go ahead and select the option for embedded PoE. As you can see now that we've made those selections, the list has shrunk quite a bit so that only those recorders that meet your needs are displayed. If nothing shows up on your list, you may have either selected a combination of options which eliminated all models, or one common reason for this is trying to fit too many cameras on a single recorder. If you need a large amount of cameras, you may have to split them across multiple recorders. Once you determine a recorder that you want to use, you'll want to click on it to select it, and then in the lower right, click the Select Recorder button. This will take you back to the screen where you set up your cameras, but now you'll notice in the upper right, on the System tab, you now have a recorder selected here. Here you can see displayed that we chose the server version Traverse. We've got our hardware selected, our number of cameras, how much storage there is, the throughput that will be used, and our predicted or estimated number of days and how many terabytes per day it will consume. Once you have this selected, you can make further adjustments to your cameras over here on the left, and doing so will cause the system to update automatically. So say I change my quantity of 5 to a quantity of 10, you'll notice things change over on the right-hand side. As I move this up, it will eventually reach a point where we exceed the capacity of this recorder. As I get closer to exceeding that, it will switch to an orange option. So here you can see some orange showing up on my total number of cameras. That means I'm approaching the max number of cameras that this recorder will support. Then, once I move this to a number that will exceed the capacity of the recorder, you'll see some items turn to red. I've got my total recording channels in red, my server version is red, my hardware is red, and so this prompts me here to select a different recorder solution because I've exceeded the capacity or capability of this particular model. Let's switch this quantity back to 10 so that we get everything back in the green. And now let's go ahead and add another recorder with the intent to use some existing third-party hardware. So I'm going to go up here to the upper right and choose Add Recorder. So now it gives me this second recorder. I'm going to change this here. I'm going to use R2, and then we're going to call this third-party. So this is the scenario where you've got existing third-party hardware that you want to reuse and install Apex software on. With the Apex server software, we're pretty flexible and can be installed on most Windows systems. We do have a strong preference towards Intel hardware, but we do have a little flexibility with some other hardware as long as it meets the minimum system requirements. Let's go ahead and add the same cameras. So I'm going to use the ellipse to the right of the cameras here and choose the clone option. So that added another set of cameras, and then I'm going to click and drag this down to my other recorder. So now I've got two recorders and the same set of cameras on both of those. When I select my lower recorder, and then over on the right, I'm going to choose my Select Recording Solution. This pulls up here, and in the upper left, instead of choosing OpenEye hardware, I now have the option as well to choose third-party hardware. When I select that, it does give me some information here about the recommended system specifications. And instead of jumping to a number of days selected, I'm going to choose the number of terabytes that are available on that existing system. Now that I've got that set, I'll go ahead and choose Select Recorder. Once back on my main project screen, you can now see the system in the upper right indicates that our hardware is a third-party selection. The last thing to go over is saving exporting, and sending your project. You'll recall at the beginning of the video, after going to OpenEye.net, I did log in the upper right. To save your project, you do need to be logged in. The cool aspect is when you save this, it is saved to your OpenEye.net login profile, so that when you log in next time, you'll be able to recall this same project as long as you saved that while you were logged in. In the upper left, you can see the button that says My Unsaved Project. If you hit the drop down on this, you're given the option to browse to your other projects that you've previously saved. You can save this project. You can export this project to Excel, or you can start a new project. Let's go ahead and save this first. So we'll just give it a name. And you can also enter a description for this so that you've got that available as a reminder, maybe what this was related to, anything that might be pertinent there for you. Go ahead and hit save on that, and you'll notice the button in the upper left reflects the name that we just gave it. Now that we have saved it, if you hit that drop down again, you'll notice you have the option to save any changes, or you can save as to give it a new version number. So if you have multiple versions you need for a project, if you're presenting to a client version 1 and version 2, you can create those this way by giving them a different name. To export the project to an Excel file, you can just click the Export to Excel button, and it's going to download an Excel file that then you can use Microsoft Excel or another spreadsheet editor to open up and make modifications to. One nice aspect is that it does include all the part numbers needed for the particular project that you've built here. Also, since it's in a spreadsheet that you can edit, you can inject cells and add pricing if you want to give it to your customer in that form. Finally, you have an option to send the project to Inside Sales and request a quote. This option is only available once you've saved the project, so make sure to save your project. Then in the upper right on the mail icon, you can click on this and it'll give you a Contact OpenEye window. You can put in your name, email address, phone number, and a message attached to this project. This will create an email that goes to the inside sales team, and they'll be able to review your project and provide you a quote on it or call you back to answer any questions. This concludes our overview of the Apex System Configurator. We hope it's helped you better understand this service and that you'll make use of it when planning future projects. If you have any questions, please email sales@openeye.net.